A call for the lowering of the talent importation threshold to tackle the city's brain drain problem. Sources say China's taikanot trainee program will be open to PhD students from Hong Kong. And a stampede at an Indonesian soccer game leaves more than 170 dead. Hello and welcome to TVB News. While the city's quarantine measures have just been eased, the business sector is calling for Hong Kong's full reopening with the mainland and the introduction of incentives to attract talent. That's not just to help buoy the economy, but also to plug the city's ongoing brain drain. More details from Jackie Lin.
It's been around 1 week since Hong Kong rolled out the 0+3 quarantine-free arrangements, but no significant rebound in inbound travelers could be seen, at least for now. With that, the business sector is calling on the government to remove the remaining 3 days of medical surveillance. Making the plea this time is George Leung, head of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce.
Large-scale activities, it need some 1 to 2 months to plan. Hopefully, we are going to see very soon 0+0.
Otherwise, the economy could only see some green shoots until the first quarter of next year at the earliest, Leung warns. And he says doing away with travel restrictions locally won't be enough.
For Hong Kong fully recover, I think other than quarantine-free with overseas country, equally important is to have quarantine-free travel with the mainland China. If we are possible to achieve this next year, then we will see likely a full rebound in the Hong Kong economy.
Another challenge, an exodus of talent. Some 10% of the Chamber's corporate members say they would permanently leave the SAR, a very important warning sign, according to the Chamber chief. George Leung says tackling the crisis of brain drain should be the city's top priority. He suggests lowering the threshold for importing talent for not just top-tier staff, but also mid-level ones. And the government should consider more perks for these skilled workers in the face of stiff competition from countries like Singapore. They include easing their pathways to residency, offering housing allowances and tax rebates. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The city reported 3,569 new COVID-19 infections today. That's 338 fewer than yesterday. Locally transmitted infections accounted for 3,354 cases, while imported cases make up 215. 4 more residents tested positive for the virus in 4 care homes for the elderly and the disabled. 9 close contacts had to be quarantined. Meanwhile, public hospitals reported the deaths of 6 more COVID patients. The 5th wave of the coronavirus has so far claimed 9,960 lives in Hong Kong. Financial Secretary Paul Chan says the fresh round of consumption vouchers could stimulate the economy over the short term, but the pandemic and external headwinds will remain a drag to the retail market. In his blog, Chan wrote the latest voucher scheme has injected some $15 billion into the market. He said the long weekend with the National Day and the Double Ninth Festival will also help boost consumer sentiment. Since the rollout of the scheme last year, the city saw 8 million consumer accounts and 150,000 merchants newly registered on the 8 e-payment platforms. The finance chief says there is a need to shore up technological innovation and the use of tech to support the economy and businesses. State media CCTV quoted sources from the China Manned Space Agency that the country is set to select its 4th batch of taikanot trainees. For the first time, the scheme will be open to Hong Kong and Macau residents. Newly available positions for the 2 SARs will be for payload specialists responsible for carrying out experiments on the space station. It's understood PhD students from Hong Kong can apply for the posts. According to CCTV, a total of 12 to 14 taikanot trainees will be selected this time around. They include 7 to 8 pilots, 3 to 4 engineers, and 2 payload scientists. While pilots will be recruited from the Chinese military, the payload scientists will be selected from researchers specializing in space science or relevant industries. The recruitment process is expected to take around 1.5 years. Overseas, Indonesian police said Sunday that 174 people died and 180 were injured after a stampede following crowd trouble at a soccer match in East Java overnight. After host team Arema FC lost to visiting side Persebaya Surabaya, supporters of the losing team invaded the pitch. Police fired tear gas, triggering a stampede and cases of suffocation. The International Football Federation has requested a report from Indonesia's Football Association, PSSI. An investigation team from PSSI has been sent to the site in the Javanese city of Malang, where the stampede took place. The remnants of Hurricane Ian today drifted through the U.S. state of Virginia. This after the storm left in its wake devastation in Florida and the Carolinas, where disaster recovery is expected to cost tens of billions of dollars. We have this report from NBC News.
Tonight, a dire new threat facing Florida in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. Floodwaters pushing levees to their breaking points.
Even though they're a couple hundred miles away from the initial impact of the storm and the storm surge, just had a lot of water, some of the rivers and inlets overflowing, so it's creating a lot of problems really all across the state.
A levee near the Miyaka River was compromised this afternoon. Hundreds forced to flee. In Arcadia, Florida, the water is still waist deep. Entire homes submerged, a community laid to waste. Across the state, a race against the clock to save thousands still stranded. More than 1 million are without power. The death toll exploding. At least 77 now dead from the worst storm to batter the state in decades. Oh! At least 35 of them in Lee County alone. This mobile home community in Main Street, Fort Myers Beach, the heartbeat of the city. It looks like a bomb went off. Look at that. That shrimp boat came in, took out that yacht, and they came in and just came right through this community. The level of devastation, the level of destruction is massive. Terry Wetzel lost almost everything, getting out with only a handful of his items.
I mean, I've been through wars. I'm a 100% disabled veteran, and I've seen a lot, but I ain't never seen nothing like this. Thank God we're alive.
On the East Coast, a rogue wave jumped a sidewalk at Miami Beach, injuring 6.
5 people into the wave.
From the skies, the scope of Ian's destruction on full display. Homes seen here on the coast totally flattened by a more than 7-foot storm surge in Fort Myers Beach. The Sanibel Causeway seen here before the hurricane collapsed during the storm, cutting off the only road to the mainland. As a nationwide effort to rebuild gets underway, even neighbors pitching in, like this mother and daughter coming to Fort Myers Beach to give back.
We're healthy, we're alive, we have a home, we have food. There are some who lost it all.
Ian now setting its eyes on the Northeast. The weekend storm putting 7 million under coastal flood alerts heading into next week.
Still ahead, a new gas pipeline launched between Greece and Bulgaria. And a new lease of life for an old train compartment's interior design at a Tai Po rain shelter. Meantime, Europe took another step towards its goal of ending reliance on Russian gas. A new pipeline between Greece and Bulgaria was hailed as a game changer by the chief of the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen, along with the leaders of Bulgaria, Greece, and Azerbaijan, launched the gas interconnector Greece-Bulgaria pipeline in Sofia. Development started 2 decades ago, but it now has added significance with Russia's war with Ukraine, resulting in Moscow halting supplies to Europe, along with recent damage to 2 major Baltic Sea pipelines. In April, Russia cut gas supplies to Bulgaria after it refused to pay for deliveries in rubles. The 182-kilometer pipe runs from the northeastern Greek city of Komotini to Stara Zagora in central Bulgaria.
I would say today a new era for Bulgaria and Southeast Europe begins. Bulgaria used to receive 80% of its gas from Russia. That was before Russia decided to launch an atrocious war against Ukraine and an energy war against Europe. It's a game changer for Bulgaria and for Europe's energy security. It means freedom from dependency on Russian gas. But thanks to projects like this, Europe will have enough gas for the winter.
Brazilians are voting today in the first round of their country's presidential elections. Left-wing former President Luiz Inácio da Silva has had a solid lead over right-wing incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro in polls in the run-up to the election. But Bolsonaro has signaled he may refuse to accept defeat, stoking fears of post-election violence. Tracy Furness has more.
On the eve of Election Day in Brazil, the 2 main candidates, former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and incumbent Jair Bolsonaro, were campaigning in Sao Paulo, the country's largest city. Despite the rain, it was their last chance to sway the voters, promising more generous welfare spending next year. Lula has always been a staunch supporter of democracy. So today, since we are living a dispute between democracy and barbarity, it's important to support President Lula, who has always been a Democrat and has always looked after the working population, says this Lula supporter. The election will be decided by tens of millions of poor people, but with rampant inflation and insufficient basic food, they are set to vote Bolsonaro out of office. Lula was the country's president from 2003 to 2010, a time when the economy was booming and he improved social safety. Former Army Captain Bolsonaro was elected Brazil's president in 2018. He imposed a conservative agenda in Brazil, but drew criticism for failing to improve living standards and for his racist and sexist comments. Lula has had a solid lead of 10 to 15 percentage points in polls, but he needs 50% or more of the votes to clinch victory without any need for a runoff election. Electronic voting urns have been distributed throughout the country and results are set to be announced within hours after the elections close. They have been used in the country's elections since 1996, with no significant fraud detected. But President Bolsonaro has already fed concern about the electronic voting system without evidence and has threatened to contest the results of the vote. Rio de Janeiro and elsewhere randomly selected voting machines Saturday to test they were working accurately. International observers and journalists were invited to watch. Brazilians are also voting Sunday for all 513 members of the lower chamber of Congress and a third of the 81 members of the Senate and state governors and legislatures. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Back here in Hong Kong, Oscar Kwok, the head of the Civil Service College, says government workers need to work on their understanding of the country and their lacking sense of national identity. Kwok, who is also a former deputy police commissioner, attributed that to a legacy from British rule. That's compounded by the efforts from a lot of Western powers to rein in China's development in recent years, he says. And their promotion work has corrupted many Hong Kongers' thoughts and mentality. Kwok says that while the civil service is still high quality, he hopes training in the Civil Service College will help weed out those unfit to serve in the government. The MTR's midlife refurbishment train entered into retirement about half a year ago. But a rain shelter in Taipo has attracted significant crowds after it utilized the familiar design of the old train model's interior. However, some train enthusiasts have criticized the move, believing that the government should do more to preserve retired rail cars. Timothy Lee has more.
A touching scene as a sea of devotees of the MLR bid their final farewells to the 40-year-old train back in May. But the familiar face-to-face seats and red handrails have made a mysterious comeback in the form of a rain shelter near Taipo's Lamchun River. Through the combined efforts of the Taipo District Office and the MTR, a restoration of the famous fly-headed train was an effort to preserve the city's history. But not only is this rain shelter the product of novel design, it also became a local attraction. This woman said the rain shelter looks very beautiful and wished that more facilities around the city could experience a similar facelift. But others shared polarized opinions. This man said the design of the train compartment looks very fake and that it would be better if they would add real glass to the design. Among those who shared the criticism of the revamped rain shelter includes MTR enthusiast Aaron, who lamented the state of Hong Kong's locomotive preservation effort.
So I don't think it is really a conservation, but only just giving them upcycle. It's just for upcycling, but not preservation. So setting up a museum might be a better choice for making the preservation of the retired train compartments, as it really shows the history and also it tells the citizens how Hong Kong developed its economic or even its town planning.
Authorities announced that there are no plans for the construction of a train-themed museum. Currently, the government is engaged in recycling retired trains parts as part of an environmental program. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the last bit of your weekend. Bye for now.